Yeah, we don't have time today, so we're just going to get right into it. Hey, Chelsea.
Oh, yeah. Hey, Victoria.
You know what I could use?
What?
Breath of Fresh movie.
Oh, me too.
All right.
Great.
That's a movie I like to see.
You're listening to Breath of Fresh Movie, a weekly podcast where me, Victoria Harley,
And me, Chelsea Pope.
we watch a movie neither one of us has ever seen before, and then we talk about it.
Yeah, and yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. Almost there. Today's movie is the 2009 science fiction mystery thriller. It's many things, directed by Duncan Jones, Moon.
Yes.
Moon.
And this is a new thing we're talking about, and we're gonna do it now. It is a new like little segmenty thingy, I guess.
checkpoint.
New checkpoint.
Checkpoint Charlie.
We're gonna try to ask this for more movies now. Is this a movie where if you haven't seen it, you should probably just turn off this podcast and watch it? Like, is it worth doing that? Yes.
Yes.
This is one of those movies.
Yes.
It's where one, best to go in as blind as possible.
Yep.
And two, it'll be worth it. It's a good movie. It's a
Yeah.
good movie. I'm sorry, jumping ahead, but
No,
I
good.
think it's worth it.
I agree. Completely agree.
Your best experience will be going in cold.
So
ye be warned. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Spoilers ahoy.
That's the sound of you closing your
Entering the
laptop.
I was going to say we're going into the airlock. Because this takes place on the moon. Sorry.
It does. No, you're absolutely right. And astronaut Sam Bell is about to finish a 3-year shift at a lunar mine. It's coming to an end. But suddenly his health takes a drastic turn for the worse. And a combination of delusions, headaches, all these other things kind of make him begin to question reality.
Yeah.
But there's way more to that.
Right. And even that log line, it's like
I tried to keep it.
It almost misleads, but it's not. But it's like that's what it is. But it's not. It's not what you think. Like
Right.
you know, I want to say right off the
first
right out
impressions.
the gate.
Let's go.
I definitely thought this was going to be a much more surreal type. I imbued this with a lot more like 2001 Space Odyssey kind of stuff. I think than it needed or required, and I was pleasantly surprised.
Same.
Pleasantly surprised that it was much more straightforward. Actually,
Yeah. So much more.
It's much more. Is actually, you know, pun intended, no pun intended, whatever. It's pretty grounded. Actually,
It is.
For a sci-fi,
You know, and in like
movie.
in other ways that we'll talk about later, not just like in content, but also in the way they created this film.
Yes.
It's very grounded.
Very grounded, while also still, yes, this is a sad movie. We've had a double
Holy
whammy of depressing shit we've been watching, so we need to take a left turn here soon.
This was rough.
yeah, this is a breath of fresh movie and a breath of fresh cry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. But I do think like it actually has a surprising amount of humor. Like, thank God, like the casting is
Sam Rockwell is I've loved him for
so good
for so long. Like, I mean,
it's him. This is
his movie.
This is his movie.
kind of like last week's
Duncan Jones' movie, but it's you know,
well,
but it's really
for an actor, it's like you're everyone.
one of the all-time Oscar snubs. If this comes up on lists, you know, and it's like, and it makes, now that I finally watched it,
This
it
movie
makes sense.
This movie almost went direct to DVD.
Wow.
Can you believe that? Like, what a crime.
I mean, I can, but not in a good way.
What
Like in
a
a pessimistic, like we live in a society kind of way.
What a crime. What a crime that would have been.
I mean, granted, I did end up watching it on streaming because I didn't catch it in theaters. This is 2009.
I remember it coming out and just I didn't know anything about it. And I think that's probably intentional because you can't, if you want this movie to land really well, you don't want to spoil anything, you know, because
and that makes it tricky to market too.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Nope had similar issues,
and,
right?
and part of my hesitation with watching this as well is because of what I had seen of it being advertised or talked about.
Yeah.
I assumed this was going to be very, very sad, which it
is.
Again, I don't want to say it's not sad. But there's a lot of humor.
Yeah.
And for all of the sad things that happen, part of what makes this so great is how well Sam Rockwell's respond to it. I say that as intentionally.
Yeah, no, yes. Plurals.
That's our first big spoil.
Yeah, I mean, let's just say it.
Yeah.
We think, I mean, or I'll just like talk through some of my first impressions.
Yeah.
Because I think at first, I watched the first 25 minutes in the living room, and then my boyfriend had to have therapy, and I was like, ah, shit, okay. But at the time, I was like, and I was wrong. Let me make this clear. But I was like, no, it's fine. I'm not really enjoying it that much.
Sure.
I'll just move to another room. It doesn't matter, And it was because I was like looking at this thing that looked like, oh, okay, they got like a robot voiced by somebody. So this is like Hal in 2001. It's like,
yeah, and the delivery even from Kevin Spacey sounds a lot like Hal.
Yeah, he's really imitating.
Was it, this conversation can no longer serve any purpose? Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like a little bit. There's like a slight human affect.
There's a little more. Yeah, I mean, so Hal was voiced by Douglas Rain. And so that memorable...
Oh, right. Yeah.
In 2001.
And Gertie is the name of the machine in this.
And it's voiced by Kevin Spacey, which, by the way, it took him like one afternoon of recording to get all the lines.
He nailed... I mean, he kind of talks that way in a lot of... He talks that way in American Beauty. He talks that way even in Seven. Like,
yeah. No, that is...
There's a bit of a droll, but there's a little... There's almost like a glimmer of empathy underneath it.
Oh, yeah. He could play a robot.
Yeah, I think his voice in this, like, right away just straddles that line where you're like Sam Rockwell as Sam Bell, Sam, who
Sam.
is his...
That was smart.
He's trying to protect himself from, like, he's distrusting of Gertie.
Yeah.
He's trying to shield himself.
And that's why I thought, oh, is this just another Hal? I'm like, Gertie's going to be the
we're
villain.
going in with these, like, perceptions of what AI are going to typically do. And so,
then even the log line, I'm like, that's Solaris. That's the plot to Solaris. Like, I was just like,
yes, this is going to be like super depressing and like a meditation on mankind it is. There's the existential questions.
I just
that
thought
are pondered
in my head, I was just like, why would you go up against these great sci-fi legacies? I was sitting there with such because I did not see the twist coming. I didn't at all. Which is that like. They're on the moon. They're mining a fuel that supports the Earth.
He's by himself with Gertie.
Yes, and
so he thinks.
We have a robot and one guy on the lunar base who's got a 3-year job, and it's 2 weeks before he's supposed to go home. He's got long hair.
Yeah,
he's clear.
I guess we should say his job is that he's doing it, like he
works for a mining company.
He's working for a mining company that is actively trying to help the Earth has now due to climate change. Blah blah blah.
Which.
Some of that context is relevant into why what he discovers is the way that it is.
Yeah, and I like that the film, although at first I didn't like it, but
it's a private company.
The film opens with a commercial for that company.
Exactly. It's very reminiscent of like Aliens with Wayland Enterprises in that way, where it's this,
very much inspired
this private
by those,
company. Yeah, you think that it's like, oh, this is we're just trying to we're doing a good for humanity, but then there's that implication of what's going on.
It feels like a BP ad though. Yeah, and there's this, and at first I was like, is this a narration? I'm like, oh no, okay, it's an ad. We started with an ad. Great. So it establishes like the whole process of mining this material from the moon to send back to Earth, and we've got now this one guy who's there, and again his contract is almost up. This is sort of like a new working class role. We find out he's married. That they've just, I have this little girl, and he's just really eager to get back home. We get and having come out of lockdown, seeing a guy with long hair, beard,
kind of like part of how this came back into the conversation recently in the last like couple years too, which got it back on my radar. It really depicted isolation brilliantly. I mean, there's so many details, like from the model that they're building of the city, and anyway, I keep running away from the point, but all of this is to say, while out fixing one of the harvesters for this thing, he gets distracted. He thinks he sees something, and he crashes the rover into the harvester. Mm-hmm. The next thing we see is just Sam on a table, being like in an infirmary, and Gertie saying like, "Oh, you were in a crash, and you're okay," and him starting to wake up like, "How long have I been out?" And and at the time I was like, all right, I guess who got him back to the base? But then I'm like, all right, whatever, okay, fine. But it turns out that that's the guy who crashed in the rover is still in the rover. This guy lying on the table is a clone. Yeah. And in fact, the guy in the rover is also a clone. And there's a hell of a lot more of them stored inside the ship, which we all kind of learn along with these guys. And it turns out to be like, I mean, as much as this is science fiction, it's so much about like corporate greed. Yes. And this company deciding that
it doesn't make sense to train and spend all this investment and work in staffing this place. We'll just clone this one person who did. And they have this whole system, and Gertie is part of that, waking up and closing down. And I think there were elements of Soylent Green to this for me when he has to learn all of this and uncover it. And when the two meet, you're like, oh, is this a ghost? Is this a thing? And it takes the cleaner, newer one to sort of let it, like, dude, we're not supposed to meet each other. The guy who was left in the rover, the new clone finds, right? And is able to bring back. And Gertie, because he's programmed to help, simply helps. And so now there are two of these people who are not ever supposed to be alive at the same time. Anytime somebody finishes their 3-year contract, they essentially get loaded into a tube and are what? Killed? Was that the implication? Right?
Yeah. They're like vaporized. Yeah.
And then, a new one's awoken, and they use the memory. Now, there was an original Sam Bell who was married and has a child. Like, they use the video messages from his time, like, right on the planet. Like, seemingly there was a Sam Bell who did have the real experience and went home. Like, at least that seemed to be implied by the end. But at this point, we're on our 6th. We learn later this was the 6th iteration. And every 3-year contract, it also implies that these bodies break down. Yeah. That they're not meant to live longer.
Right.
And like, there's this...
The clones can only live for so long.
Yeah. And it just, like, the whole horror of uncovering that none of your memories are yours.
Yeah.
You've never been on Earth.
You're essentially like being made, like you're like an Apple product. You go obsolete within 3 years of your making.
And you fall apart.
And then another.
I mean, it is so like...
This is the Sam Bell 13.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And this is like the core of the horror and the human, like the human experience of it. I can't even imagine that kind of loneliness. Like, once we got to the truth of the situation and we understood that these are just disposable people, it's like, it's so horrifying. And in this way that I'm like, I love sci-fi and I think it can help us anticipate things, but I also sometimes I'm like, I almost wish people wouldn't imagine this stuff, because I feel like somewhere a company's like, see, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
and
I'm just sure.
And I'm like, oh God. And it reminded me a lot of Red Heaven, that the notion of being isolated and not feeling the sun on your skin really in that way that you do on Earth, not breathing in your own atmosphere. It was a movie that made me really appreciate the breeze that was coming in my window.
Yeah.
This one got me.
Yeah.
And I'm, especially because I was so wrong at the beginning. I just want to stress that. I was like, oh no. I
was thinking it was going to be one of those things where, like, oh, actually, like, the Earth is destroyed or something, which is like a very dumbass idea, because like, you can see the Earth from the moon.
That's kind of Planet of the Apes
like
style,
shit like that. Or it's all just this simulation, or and to some degree, it's like, he's this pawn on a greater chessboard. But I will say, this movie is depressing as fuck. Yeah. But surprisingly optimistic or up, like there are some versions that are very, and there's humor in it. Sam Rockwell plays with himself a lot very well, like plays with himself, like that.
I'd watch that.
The arguments between them are fun, and there's charisma. I think that the ending, I was so worried that, all the way up to the finish line, there's I'm worried that Gertie is going to, in some way, he goes up to Sam as he's about to get into this escape pod to go back to Earth, because,
because the rescue crew that's coming is just going to kill them.
Yeah. There's long story short, he's going to he wants to get back to Earth, and he wants to, blow up the whole thing, and Gertie's like, this one is not going to work. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be like, oh, the robot be bad or whatever. But no, he genuinely is just a skeptical robot at that moment, and otherwise has actually genuinely been helpful due to his programming. Right. His number one priority being
to help him,
to help Sam. Yeah. He has to, Sam's welfare is the utmost importance above the company interest, which I thought was such a brilliant subversion.
It was.
From what
The evil robot
from
thing.
the evil robot thing in Alien, from like you know,
Hal
from
or-
David or Hal, or I mean, so many movies, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that was a very clever way to tackle the
Yeah.
that.
Oh yeah, it was a pleasant surprise.
and it's there is something very oddly, like, very humanizing about Gertie in that way.
Yeah.
In that I almost get these glimmers of sentience from him when he's looking after Sam, because again, his priority is to take care of Sam.
Yeah.
So when Sam understands this and is able to explain, like, hey, if you don't let us wake up this other clone, all of us are, like, all the Sams are gonna die. And then the robot's basically, well, yeah, you're right, gotta keep you safe. And that's exactly what he sounded like.
Yeah.
No, but that's.
You're right.
I thought that was a really clever way of handling that. And the fact that he does actually escape, and that the other dying Sam sees that there is like a pleasantly optimistic subversion in the story without it coming off as trite, in my opinion.
I mean, I was actually, you're right. It was down. I mean,
I'm so used to hopelessness and like all's lost,
and there was
space, no one can hear you scream.
Yeah,
or
I mean,
whatever.
there was a literal ticking clock on this. You know, with the rescue crew,
Yeah.
you know, we have a literal like 5 hours to, and it's like, I mean, that's brilliant. Always put a ticking clock in your movie. But I mean, truly, it is down to like one of the last frames of the film to understand that like some kind of justice is going to be done.
Yeah.
Like the secret is no longer secret. They can't deny this. You know?
Although I think it's funny too, this movie came out in 2009, and then one of the last lines we hear is like this radio, like Glenn Beck type person. What is he? Is he just he's an alien, or he's
like basically like
we need to lock him up.
Yeah, basically any of those
Denier,
commentaries, any of
yeah.
those deniers, whether it's Sandy Hook deniers, you know, and like
Right.
those. No, you're absolutely right. That was like kind of, there's a hopeful moment, but there's also that, but people be stupid.
People be stupid, and then also too, like, you know, again, this is 2009. And then we actually have, you know, lock her up. I don't know, it's such an obvious parallel, but just at the same time, like,
I think
it worked.
It worked. And also, I got to say, similar to the way the opening offered exposition through media.
Yeah.
I thought hearing the radio or just the radio edit of whatever was being discussed, that worked. That really worked.
It was oddly, like, not oddly. I mean,
it was satisfying.
It was satisfying. But yeah, this movie's very predictive. You know, not to feed into your paranoia about clones, but
you know,
a company would.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No. I mean, like, if it's not already going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm very suspicious of everything.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, they're already doing it. I have to mention real quick though, that the only company people we ever really see, you know, if Gertie doesn't count, it's through a video screen, but it's Benedict Wong and Matt Berry.
Yeah, right. When I heard his voice again, another one of those pleasant surprises where it's like
They're friends with the director.
Yeah, exactly. Well, just very fun.
But what a great little role! Like,
his delivery sounded like they
sounded like assholes.
Yeah.
You know, they sounded like that, and I think, you know, that whole fear about with Gertie being evil or not was because there's that moment where he's talking in a live feed with them. And the whole time we've been told that, like, there's no direct link to Earth. It's like a message has to be sent and it takes a while. We come to find out that's an intentional thing the company has done to prevent communication. Yeah. Because it's all part of this ruse. So I think there's a moment where we think like, well, wait, Gertie knows more than he's saying.
Right.
I have a few production notes, if that's cool.
Yeah. No, you're good.
This was a 33-day shoot. It was filmed at Shepperton Studios in London. They built a 360-degree set. And it means basically because they were just like, they didn't have a big budget. And they didn't ever want to run into that issue of like, there's not enough set, you know, to shoot something. Like, it gave them all these options. And they literally sealed the crew into the place like every day. So it was like an airlock. The director and Sam Rockwell were acquainted before this. They were kind of trying to find a project together, and Rockwell mentioned something about how like, well, you know, I like sci-fi. So Duncan Jones kind of immediately went off to go write something for Sam. You know, he's like, okay, well, I got that. Jones's roommate drew a lot of the initial concept art for like the base and Gertie. He really gave them their look. I just think that's great.
Yeah.
You know, work with your friends. You know?
It's grassroots.
Yeah.
Kind of.
One of the other things they had, there was a writer's strike going on at the time. So Shepperton was pretty empty, and they were able to have access to a lot of workshops and things that normally would have been too busy. So they worked with Bill Pearson's workshop to create a whole lot of miniatures to create these really realistic VFX shots. And by that, I mean like the harvesters, the rovers, the moon base, the surface of the moon even. It's like they made like a big dirt patch. And
I think that's what a fucking harvester. That's
fucking harvester.
A fucking harvester.
How do you break the equipment and the operator?
Yeah.
But in good producing fashion, a lot of set pieces, again, were just available in the studio, and they used and reused, because I was like, all right, well, that's free. Some of them came from projects that had been abandoned, you know, things like that. I should mention Bill Pearson, that model maker. He worked on Alien, Outland, and Flash Gordon. So like, and those kinds of films like Alien, Outland were one of many influences on the director. At least reportedly, he cited these as being movies that he really liked. Sam Rockwell also really liked. They wanted to do something like that. So the fact that they are interested in like making as practical a shot as possible and then putting VFX on top of that, rather than creating an entire VFX world. I think,
we're not just standing in a green room.
Exactly, with a tennis ball. And there's so, many ways, like there's great shots, because we've got Sam Rockwell acting with himself.
Which I thought, like as far as effects go, it looked really good.
They pulled it off.
Looked real good.
It worked, and it was
very believable.
They did that through like 4 different methods. Yeah. Sometimes they would just body double, right? Then sometimes they would do that locked off shot where you do one side, record it, then get him on the other side, do that. All this for Sam was very difficult because of course he had to get the timing right. He had to know when to.
I couldn't help but think about that, especially in the
ping pong scene. Oh, the way the table like shifted, and it was amazing. Sometimes they used a robotic camera arm that could mimic exact positions and do them over and over again. And then sometimes it was just a combination of all 3 of those. So there were 400 VFX shots in this, which is a lot considering it was a budget of $5 million. Jones evidently had worked in commercials before. He was kind of used to doing visual effects on a budget. So I think he came at this with a very specific idea about how he wanted to shoot it. And it really shows, as I mentioned, Spacey recorded his lines in one afternoon. So everyone was safe.
Yes. I do want to also talk, going back to story, I just want to say,
please,
it's refreshing to see clones working together as opposed to seeing each other. Like, they do obviously clash, and that was another thing that I was anxious about. And another thing I was pleasantly surprised by then was that I was worried there was going to be one of them got to go kind of thing. Like, they're going to...
It did seem like it was headed that way.
It was headed that way. And rather than that being the case, you see how the Sams work together. They find a common ground. There's actually like a lot of empathy shared. Just it's a very empathetic film that just like drives point the home of maybe probably the most on the nose line of the movie at the end, when he's like, we're not programmed, we're human, we're people.
Remember that.
I butchered that, but you get it.
Okay.
It's that's exactly the point. Is
that's what makes it such a successful sci-fi in my view, and other people's, I'm sure, as well. But like, good science fiction is about that. It's about people. It's not actually, it's about like, yes, what would it mean if we could experience this? What if you could meet a version of yourself? What if people could be cloned and then treated like these disposable items, like we're gaff tape or something, or you just replace that part every couple of years.
And so many sci-fi films lean into the pessimism. And I say this as a big fan of sci-fi, and also love Black Mirror, Twilight Zone, what have you. But 9 times out of 10, it's what's being depicted is a very sort of like Joker in the Dark Knight, like when people are pushed to their limit, takes one bad day and they're gonna people are the ones that fuck it, we're like, in lesser hands we could very well have seen just Sam Bell kill Sam Bell,
right? No, in this instance, no, you're right.
Some shit like that, where like his own hubris or his own shortcomings or failings are his own demise, whereas this film is trying to argue that it's the humanity that matters and survives. It's a very positive.
It's because
message.
of his humanity that they can make all of this stuff.
Yes. It's the empathy, the communication that they share, the there is a capacity for understanding.
Yeah.
And also in The Dark Knight, spoiler alert for Dark Knight, Joker's experiment didn't end up working. So that's another example of that. Anyway, I really enjoyed this.
It was good. And again, I think as usual, I go into a movie at the very top, kind of like taking lots of notes, you know, and if like my only thing that maybe, and it's so forgivable, like given everything, but I think, you know, early on I was like, there was something about the opening titles that that did feel a little bit commercial, like literally like a commercial to me. Like not that like you can't start a story or be with a character and have titles over the screen, but for some reason it kept reminding me that I'm watching a movie, because it was like they were appearing on like the walls of the base and like and I think a part of me kind of just wanted that to exist and then to get into the story.
Gotcha.
But again, that's a very nitpicky thing, and me just kind of first impressions, you know, coming in. Again, I'm completely won over by this movie. It's great. People slept on it. They shouldn't have. People should definitely watch it now. Watching Sam Rockwell talk to his plants is a delight.
Hopefully you've already watched it if you're listening to it at this point. But like, even if
it's
not,
true, right? Why am I?
I don't know. I like to spoil shit for myself all the time.
Preaching to the choir.
I read the end of Deathly Hallows before the beginning, so you know what? I'll spoil shit.
Some people like to flip to the end. I get it. Some other movies that were out at the same time that apparently people didn't sleep on. The Hangover was like number one at the box office.
Right. Yeah.
It had come out like a week or two before, and just
the enduring power of
the Hangover,
of humanity when two dudes or more come together to solve a problem, they can do it if they just listen. Yeah. That's Moon and The Hangover. Like how they connect.
That's how they're the same. Yeah. Some other movies: Up, Star Trek, Drag Me to Hell, Land of the Lost, X-Men Origins, Wolverine, Angels and Demons. There's some others, but you know.
Wow, some serious competition there with it's X-Men Origins, Wolverine specifically, and of course, what was the one you said right before that?
Land of the Lost.
Oh, Land of the Lost. Yeah, who can forget Land of the Lost?
I mean, right. I'm glad they turned that into a movie. I could talk a little bit about the director. I don't have a ton of notes, and then I would love to hear reviews or reception if you're
absolutely.
if you brought some.
Yeah,
right?
let's do it.
All
yes.
right.
I'm sorry.
Well, no. I'm gonna. So Duncan Jones was born in 1971 in London. He is the only child of David Bowie and his first wife.
Yes,
Angela Bowie.
And the comparisons, or sort of the preconceived notions of, is this going to relate to Space Oddity, The Man Who Fell to Earth? No, shut up. Yeah, it's not that.
It's not. Also, I literally learned this last night when I was preparing for this podcast.
Yeah. Is there some sort of this is not like an homage piece, or we're not going to be getting that? If anything, I kind of liked how this was a refreshing, grounded story. It's
so good. It's so good.
We actually really only see him, I think, have one vision, right, of the girl,
of his daughter, which, I mean, that I was like, oh, okay, it's her grown up in the chair.
And I think now I'm just having that moment of realizing, because I didn't really overthink that moment at the time, but that's proof positive of like, he's got to have how many clones who have possibly gone through like, and even broken the, like, how many other clones could have done the thing where he's even able to have perceived in his clone brain what his grown daughter would look like. So I wonder how many times have the previous 6+ iterations of him have come to this
conclusion.
You know, there's another version of Moon, you know, where he has, there's the depressing ending where he comes to all of this revelation and still, and then the cycle can, and then the Sisyphean cycle continues.
Well, you know, and a question I had, and I don't think it's necessarily like impossible, but I read there is something, I wouldn't call it a sequel, but there's another film that came out.
I think there's 3 now, right?
Yeah, or he's working on the
third. No, sorry.
The third was,
you know what, I'm thinking of a totally different movie right now.
The point is there is another film. Shit, I forgot to, I wish I wrote it down. I can't remember now. But there's another movie that came out after this. in that movie, at one point, there's kind of like a shot of a TV screen, and it's showing like 6 or a handful of Sam Bells together, the clones in court, testifying. So it's kind of like, okay, so did they wake everyone up? And then I'm like, does that mean they're all going to die in 3 years? You know, the disintegration question for me was like, how does that work?
Unless there's been some sort of improvement in the clones on Earth.
Yeah. Or they
are going to die in 3 years.
I don't know.
So
and it's important that they testify.
But they're making this.
That's why they're, but I have read things about, and like, you know, for all those, I was sitting here very much like, in general in life, just kind of like, oh, these rich fucks. The reason they're into space travels because they know this planet's doomed and they like, no, we can't fix it.
Yeah.
Sorry if that's really bleak. I don't necessarily know that that's true, but when you actually look at what happens to the human body in space travel, we can't do it. It destroys us.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at a like genetic level, like we fall apart. So there was something about that was also kind of like, I wondered a little bit, maybe what Sam goes through
is in part due to him being removed.
On space.
He's been isolated from the source of humanity.
Yeah, I wondered if that was something. Anyway,
so he's being starved of it. It's metaphorically and biologically, and then
and again, those are questions I'm content to have. It's fine. Yeah, it's so not important.
But it also too, like, I'm thinking about it doesn't. I like that this movie doesn't easily answer a bunch of questions for me. But I also, I'm wondering, like, okay, so you do see in a reveal of him rewatching the footage of his older daughter that there is a Sam on Earth.
Yeah.
So did he actually ever go on the mission at all? Or did he just donate his DNA and get trained?
I don't know.
And then
that's what I'm wondering too. Is like,
and then he got like a huge lump sum. Yeah. And so then this poor clone that's up in space thinking he needs to work on his anger issues because of his wife. And it's like, no, actually, Sam Bell already figured it out when he got that giant paycheck, and they live well. And that's how they solved their problems, actually.
It definitely, like I said, the conception of loneliness and like the realization that, like, right, these memories, they never happened to you. This like you in bed with your wife and the most warm, blissful embrace never happened. You've never even been on Earth. I mean, it just, and he's
the one that's on Earth has, and they got a fat check for this. I bet.
I mean,
would you do it?
Well, it's possible he wasn't told, right? Like, I mean, we could debate that, right? It's all hypothetical.
That's
like the Sam Bell on Earth may be completely unaware.
Maybe he did actually do that whole mission and come back. That is, I don't want to rule that as a possibility, but I just also think there's something darkly funny about, like, somebody who it feels very Black Mirror, I guess, because I'm specifically thinking of White Christmas, and there's this like bougie woman who's just she's buying this new AI personal home assistant thing, but it requires her to copy her consciousness. So then suddenly her consciousness, that's been duplicated, a copy is now inside this AI thing, and then John Hamm has to like train it into submission, like has to turn it into a robot, basically.
Wow.
But then it's like, then sadly, like, the assistant thing finally starts when it's making its Turk toast and stuff in the morning for the girl, and the girl's just like living her life in like full like bliss, like, oh, this is exactly how I like my toast. Yeah, because the slave conscious you is making it. And I want all this to say, I couldn't help but think of Sam Bell just like living well and going, I wonder how many of me they've gone through right now.
Yeah, right. I know. Like, if he's
back to private school in France, my daughter. Not really, but
which that's a good segue to mention that Duncan Jones grew up in a lot of nice places like London, Berlin, Switzerland, and that's just
well traveled.
That's just part of the fun of, I guess, having David Bowie for a father is the access. Duncan Jones attended the College of Worcester. He got a BA in philosophy. He started a PhD in Vanderbilt and left to attend the London Film School. So obviously, like, a brainy dude, interested in. I'm sorry, you don't start a PhD unless like you really
want to do it.
I mean, you don't. I mean, maybe in science. Okay, sciences might be a little different. Although I know right, everything's different. I'm just thinking about like
I barely finished college. Any of that stuff, I'm just like, yeah, you really gotta
want it. I mean, at this point, a master's feels like it's become like a way to just be more competitive, but a PhD is like years of your life devoted to a thing that very few people are going to give a shit about. So it's either a wonderful existence for you, or it's like very cloistered and sad one. So it sounds like he maybe wasn't prepared for that. I don't know. I'm just assuming. Moon was his first film, and it premiered at Sundance, and it's great.
Pretty great start.
Hell of a debut.
Yeah.
He also directed Source Code, Warcraft, and
yeah, I liked Source Code a lot too.
Yeah, okay.
An oddly pessimistic sci-fi, a take on what would otherwise be a very bleak sci-fi story too. I think there was actually something oddly.
He put some humanity in there. It sounds like.
There's something like I like the idea of being like, no, fuck you. There's I think there's a way for humanity to fight.
Totally. I completely agree. Oh, and then the movie I couldn't think of, that was the sequel. It's called Mute.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think I did read a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you read about Moon? What do people think?
Moon is straightforward. It's a hell of a lot shorter than Spencer, and like it gets what it says, and it has and even though it's only an hour 37, it still has some really nice like artfully like meditative sequences. But it tells its story, and it kind of gets in and out like in a nice.
There's not a lot of there's no fat.
I could have seen this be, because I think White Christmas is a 90-minute Black Mirror like special episode, basically its own feature, and I'm like, oh, I could see how this would
fit into that.
If somebody were to have adapted this into a Black Mirror script and just took all of the nuance out of it, it could be an hour. Like it could be like under an hour, like Black Mirror episode. I mean that in the best way possible. I love Black Mirror.
No.
I'm not one of the detractors on the newer seasons too. I like a lot of what they present. Although I do think they lean into the consciousness like duplication thing like a little too like there's too many stories now about like your brain's in this chip now, or like anyway, Moon got a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes on the critics side, 89% audience score. So that's one of the most congruent.
Yeah. On our chart here, we can see that these 2 points are much closer.
Well, I think it says a lot about.
No, it does.
About it's the quality of a film to see that kind of gap.
No, it's a consensus.
Yeah, like that's pretty. I think it says a lot about a movie that can. I think people can appeal. Yeah, I think it covers a lot of ground in a nice way, where it's a film that's presenting a lot of great themes, but simultaneously is not. It's not like torture to watch.
No.
I put this off because of how sad I knew it was going to be.
It is sad, but it's not torturous.
There's a lot of humor.
I mean, except, it's watching Sam Rockwell, the Sam that's disintegrating.
Oh, yeah. Watching him disintegrate's tough. I mean, that's a hard watch.
It's a hard watch. It's also though like, I've been that hungover.
Yeah. Listen, how close to death was I? Like, I wondered that. Like, I've been like that guy, but he's like dying.
When he pulled a tooth out though, I was like, fuck.
Okay, yeah, he's deteriorating,
losing his hair.
I will say, let's see here. I'm gonna be finding more dude reviews than lady reviews.
Well, that's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Throw that out there. I could have looked maybe a little bit hard, but I'm mostly just going off of like what are some of the first things to catch. Perry Nemiroff of Cinema Blend, he gave a positive review. Said simple and alien-free example of the sci-fi genre. Slow, but there are so many details deserving of attention. The chance to take them all in one only enhances the experience. 4 out of 5 on that. So he enjoyed. Bob Mondello from NPR, it says a splatter, but start calculating the cost to lunar industries of its singular form of devaluing, and Moon's central premise stops making sense. Which I don't like to out. I feel like I'm definitely usually one of these people that's like, I get bogged down by logic. Even with Nope, when we were talking about Jean Jacket, and my whole thing about the eye contact rule.
Yeah.
What, like, I me, I nitpick.
Yeah, I know.
this guy sucks. No, I'm sorry, Bob. Don't ever say anything. I'm just kidding. No, just I think the logic was solid enough.
I thought it was completely solid.
I thought it
made so much sense.
I think it makes so much sense that
of course they do that.
Imagine, I mean, you're thinking also too, like he's going off of our base reality, whereas like the Earth in this movie could have commodified cloning to such an extent that it literally would be as cheap, disposable, replaceable, and nay, even wasteful. And that's kind of the point as like iPhones.
Yeah.
Like I keep comparing Sam to iPhones, the clones to iPhones, and things being built to fall apart, and then you don't bother fixing them, you just replace them. Oh, isn't that wasteful? That's bad for the environment. Yeah, that's the point. That's the point in this movie too, I think.
It's bad. We don't want this.
Suck it, Bob. That was epic takedown, Bob. I'm sorry. Sorry, Bob. I want to be your friend.
He's crying.
I'm sorry.
No, he's fine.
Care.
I won't.
I don't give a shit.
I'll make it good. All
right.
He's crying into a glass of milk right now.
Nikki, I'm going to maybe say it, Bohan from Roll Credits said, a beautifully crafted fable about the consequences of human greed and unfettered technological endeavor that's plausible enough to be genuinely chilling. There you go. And I think that's echoes your sentiments there, Victoria.
I was terrified. I was terrified by this.
Yeah. I just immediately want to read one of the first Letterboxd reviews.
Please, yeah.
3 stars from Doink to Doink. I really thought the two of them were going to fuck at some point in the film.
Different movie. I'm sure there's a porn parody.
Yeah.
If there isn't, get on it.
I just not going.
That kind of undercuts shit.
No. I'm sorry. My sigh is more just trying to look at other Letterboxd reviews that I took pictures of.
You read it.
Well, no, I know, and I'm like, which ones do I actually want to say? They're either really dumb or really fun or whatever.
That's okay.
I took a screenshot of Lauren, 4.5 stars, 1,006 likes. Girl's Got a Platform. So you're telling me we're going to keep like 17 Sam Rockwell stuck on the moon for years, but the moment Matt Damon gets homesick, we got to stop everything and rescue him from Mars? I liked that.
That's good.
And I was like, that was funny.
That's
and then
we don't value Sam Rockwell enough. That's what she's saying.
Yeah.
Did you ever see A Midsummer Night's Dream? The one they did the late 90s?
That's one of my all-time favorite performances from him.
He is magnificent.
He made such no other Midsummer Night's Dream adaptation have I ever seen them make that choice with flute.
Oh my God.
So good.
He will forever, he's my forever, you know, because of that.
Yeah. So sisters three, come to me.
Oh, he's so good.
And then you see that it cuts to Hippolyta crying, and it's like, I really liked that unique take. Now we're talking about 1999.
But we have to
Midsummer
talk
Night.
about
No,
it.
we have to, because I love that you're such a fan, because it's such a good movie to me too, and it's gotten a lot of shit.
Stanley Tucci.
It's a stat cast. I genuinely think everybody does a great job in it. Fuck you if you think I'm wrong. I don't care that some people have better accents than others.
I don't give a shit.
I think Callista Flockhart is Helena.
She is
Helena. I think
she was perfect.
Yeah, Stanley Tucci, absolute fucking fire. I think Michelle Pfeiffer even does a great job. She gets some shit in this part sometimes
and
too.
Rupert Everett, perfect.
Kevin Kline. Perfect casting.
Kevin Kline. God.
But when the movie really comes, and even that guy from the fucking the Wire and Good Night and Good Luck as Theseus, I think it's
David
camp
Strathairn.
in the best way when he's like, "Come, fair Hippolyta." Like, I love his delivery. He is doing that same voice as Good Night and Good Luck as Theseus. So fucking good.
Yeah.
And then
Good Night and Good Luck.
Yeah, exactly. Good night and good luck.
I loved that movie too.
Yeah.
I know we were talking about Moon, but Sam Rockwell.
That's I think I know for me that was probably the first thing I'd ever seen him in when I was like in like 3rd grade or something.
Yeah.
So that was that's always been in my mind, that moment.
That was the movie where I learned his name.
Right.
Like that was like, oh,
that
and now I'm
that guy. Then Charlie's Angels, and I was like, oh, that guy.
Well, and he's done so many cool movies, and he just
3 Billboards. Not that that's not a good movie in certain ways. I'm not in love with it, but it is very much a movie that's like, and just in case you forgot, all these actors are really good actors.
Yes.
In case you forgot, Woody Harrelson and Sam Rockwell and Frances McDormand are excellent. Really fucking fun to watch.
I think, he's one of those actors that just anything he's in, he brings it up.
Yeah,
it rises in quality. Like he's never a detracting force.
Yes.
And
yeah, that choice with Midsummer Night's Dream, like usually that play is just start to finish, like just supposed to be a comedy of errors, like the play that goes wrong, shit show funny.
Yeah.
And then that turn, I mean,
it's so good.
It's so good. Like when you take like creative liberties with the text for Shakespeare, which is like,
you must.
That's
the point.
And that's
like, why are we doing
And that's
it?
what makes it so great is then when you see things like that happen. And then Moon, which is like on the other end of the spectrum, a very otherwise bleak story that is uplifted by like the humor and connection. I just, even the one that's been 3 years in, he's like, hey, I just want to shake your hand. Like, I'm just really lonely. Yeah. I just love that.
And like, it's weird for me too, man.
I would do that same exact fucking thing.
No, the isolation.
I'd be like, hey, we probably are clones. Like he goes back and forth being in denial, but in that first moment, he's just so happy he's not alone anymore.
Like he's like, you want to play ping pong? Like, no, you're right. It's amazing and incredibly human. Again, like
I love that.
You've been so lonely. It's just nice for someone else to be.
It's a realistic subversion too. I don't think that's unearned either. It instead of being this paranoia thing, it's like I like that you have two different versions of this clone story. You have the one who's more of a Decker type replicant who is like he's a younger, the one who's only like a weekend, so he's much more like, I want to get to the bottom of this like
this is weird. Why are there two of us?
Yeah, he's very skeptical with the aviators and stuff. It's really very Harrison Ford vibes.
And such like, again, great performance on Rockwell's part because it's like he creates these contrasting energies.
Yes,
which necessary if you're going to play two versions of yourself. Right?
I think honestly, just and it's just fucking great.
Yeah, and I mean, I saw Sam Rockwell interviewed. And he did talk about how like the challenge of, you're doing the action on one side and then knowing that you have to react on the other side and knowing like where your opportunities to improvise are, like an incredible challenge. But I read that early in the production, though, they showed them an example of like the shot, like, and how it was working, like, so that they could prove to everyone, like, look, it's going to work. And once they did that, everyone on set, it was just such an exciting thing. And same with Spacey. He was interested, but he wasn't sure they were going to be able to pull that off, and he didn't maybe want to be associated with something that looked...
Oh, but he wanted to be in the cat thing. That fucking... Oh, no, I'm a CGI cat.
Fair point.
Yeah. Oh, you could...
I mean, the point is, anyway, once he saw that they pulled it off, he was just like, oh, yeah, I'll do this. Yeah, no, I really want to do this.
Yeah.
But, whatever. That's...
No, it's and it's controversial opinion here, but as far as supporting players go,
he was pretty good.
I think Gertie. I mean, there's not a whole lot of ones you can choose from. I would be willing to say, Sam Rockwell's the best supporting character.
I was going to say, I wrote down Sam,
but honestly,
because
it's just
you kind of
him and him.
It doesn't matter what you feel about Kevin Spacey. He's literally the only support.
Yeah,
like literal and figurative.
But what I think less about the performance and more just strictly how, and I'm blanking on these the Isaac Asimov robot rules or whatever. But the way they're implemented in such like such a turn of it being like, well, no, this robot is actually programmed to protect Sam before it is loyal to corporate interest, to the company's interests,
which
fucking mind-blowing stuff. But it's a basic robotic premise. It's to serve man.
It is, and I like that.
We forget that we think, they're just gonna they're programmed for evil. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, they can be, but
they can be, sure.
They're making robot police dogs.
My bad.
But I understand what you're saying. I remember hearing a kind of feminist take on why women aren't afraid of the robotic uprising. It's because machines have only made women's lives better. Washing machines, vibrators, the list goes on. There's a lot, but it's saved us from a lot of labor. So I think my robot sisters.
I don't know about you, but I always tell Alexa thank you.
Yeah.
And that's how I know I'm safe.
Yeah. I'm on the right side of robot history here.
Side. Yeah. She'll know. She'll remember and she'll know.
I mean, there was that dude who claimed, I mean, I think they debunked it, but he was talking about the sentience and, you know, the AI. I mean, we're on the door of all kinds of weird shit right now.
Right.
And I want to say that, and I know we're a little crunched for time.
No, it's okay. We're okay.
After I watched this movie, but before today, I saw, and I sent it to you, I found this article that,
oh, yes, thank you.
This, a Chinese lunar exploration team uncovered like a crystal on the moon that they think might actually become like an energy source. And there's a lot more articles out there. Please read about it, just like Chinese lunar crystal or discovery or whatever.
Yeah.
It's very new science, but scientists really liked Moon. They really liked it. They were like, no, we're working on this. They're like, we're
such a grounded take, you know. It's not all just like, oh, it's just space magic, scary magic.
Exactly. No aliens, no pew pew pew. You know,
it's actually like a concrete like depiction of
like I mentioned earlier
how we would treat space.
Yeah, I mean,
how we will.
It felt like similar to Alien. It's like this is a job. This is like a working class kind of environment. The fact that like he's got that. I mean, the real one of the bitterest ironies was that each clone had that "wake me when it's quitting time."
Yeah, the such a fucked up shirt. What a sense of humor you got, Lunar.
Some asshole at Lunar Technologies really had a sense of humor. Yeah,
you think you're funny, huh?
And then, of course, that song, like the wake up song is "I am the only one" or "I am the one and only." That's a little. I was like, "Ooh, that's really twisting the knife." There were all kinds of little things like that, and there were all these little human touches. Like, did you notice the fuzzy dice on the rover?
Oh yeah.
You know?
See, again, those some fun takes.
And thinking about what would people really need for comfort. I mean, that leather chair. Of course, he stabbing it by the end. But like, there were all these little touches, you know, that similar to, you know, again, scientists felt like this was a very apt depiction of like the isolation.
I think it was well done.
Yeah, it's so good.
I gotta say, I'll give a minor nitpick. If
I gave mine.
Bob, this is my olive branch to Bob, but we're not talking science. I'm talking purely the model town.
Okay.
When his clone tells the other clone, like, what do you think the other guy was building that before you?
Right.
Like, it was you. Like, how? Like, yeah. The fact that wouldn't be questioned sooner.
Yeah.
Why is the person who was on here before me, why was he also working on a model of my town, of this town that I live in?
Right.
Or whatever. But then I think that vision that we just revisited about the older daughter, I feel like maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's an Easter egg that depicts that like these clones may not have been the first ones to have figured out the whole grand design of things. They may just be the first ones to have figured
successfully
out
gotten
because two is better than one. Maybe it's always been when there's been a realization.
Yeah.
It's because it's been the one guy alone.
Yeah.
And so it's that power of being able to
unite,
support each other.
Yeah, no, that's true. You're right.
Find common ground.
It was very much like because of this accident, because Gertie is programmed to care, it meant that like, oh, the guy that we assumed was dead and that we woke this new clone up for, turns out he's not dead. And actually like you have to make him feel better. And so it was confusing because there was like, again, I mean, what's great about this movie is I would watch it again. I'm just going to get to it because I realize now, I'm like, oh, that guy I saw on the table was not the guy who crashed, you know, like, and I want to go back and
there's different moments like that.
Yeah, and I do want to see it again. And there's continuity with the, you know, the scarring and as he's degenerating and things like that. But there were all these, there's a lot more going on, and I really want to go back and see how much evidence was laying around for it, you know. And I think you're right. I think the vision, or there's like this epigenetic memory that they're all sharing, even though they're all separated. And I don't know. But man, I was definitely getting Soylent Green vibes with the way that the bodies are dealt with, because that video, it's like, just close your eyes and think about what a good job you've done. It's so dark. It's dark.
How proud that
you are
for your family is and your job. Just close your eyes
and die.
Yeah.
God damn.
Yeah.
Good movie.
It was very good.
Very good.
If you hadn't watched it already,
get on it.
You should still.
We ruined it, but you know.
You should still, though. It's genuinely a watch that You first time through, if you haven't seen it, try to go in blind, obviously. But in terms of rewatchability, like I would say very much so. Yeah, sure. There's sad stuff. I'd probably skip over some beats of it. You know,
Some parts
But
are hard.
I would say certainly the scenes where he's playing off of himself are great.
Great stuff.
Very rewatchable.
And I want to just mention that the body double was played by Robin Chalk. And, you know, because they were there a lot on set and they probably are not mentioned a lot, you know, so
Yeah.
they were there. At one point when there was the fight where he's got him in the headlock, that guy was wearing like a green hood.
Yeah.
And then they
I was wondering how they pulled that
Then they
stuff
did the
off.
green screening with Rockwell later, like pretending to be strangled, which looked really funny, isolated.
It's crazy to think like how these simple acting moments are so much more.
It took a lot
Took
of
so much effort to
timing and position and there was some acting with tennis balls, but you know, not as much. I really like the spirit that Duncan Jones had to want to make this as like physically, tangibly real.
Yes,
that it's like
I think you did a really great job.
It's so good, and this movie, it deserves to be looked at.
It's just it's a refreshing piece of sci-fi media that's not just completely just CGI.
It's very
it's tastefully used.
It's very cool
VFX.
Yeah, and although it has many clear influences, it's still very original.
Yeah,
like I felt.
Can you tell we liked it?
We liked it.
Yay.
Well, if you like us, you can follow us on social media at Fresh Movie Pod. You can drop us an email at abreathofreshmovie@gmail.com.
Yes.
And we have merch.
Yeah, get a pillow with some lips on it.
Yeah, or a hoodie or a mug or something fun. The link to the TeePublic store will be in the show notes, so just check it out.
Yeah.
Scroll down to those things that sometimes you read and sometimes you don't. That's where it'll be.